My name is Erin Corrales-Diaz, and I'm the Assistant Curator of American Art at the Worcester Art Museum. Welcome to our highlights tour of Beyond Midnight, Paul Revere. One if by land, two if by sea, this oft-recited line from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's famous 1860 poem conjures a familiar vision of Paul Revere, the legendary patriot about to embark on his storied midnight ride. The poem immortalized Revere as a national hero, but that dramatic event was only one out of a lifetime of noteworthy achievements. Before the iconic ride, Revere was a highly regarded silversmith in Boston. Recognized for his innovations in metalworking, he demonstrated a striking balance of artistic talent and technological skill. This gained Revere a range of artistic, civic, and political contacts who commissioned pieces from him, helping to establish his broader legacy. Revere's pioneering, creative, and intellectual accomplishments are as much the stuff of legends as his heroic contributions to the Revolutionary War. Organized by the American Antiquarian Society, Beyond Midnight, Paul Revere reveals a complex, multifaceted man at the intersection of America's social, economic, artistic, and political life. We start in 1768, years before Revere's legendary ride, with this iconic portrait of the silversmith at work by John Singleton Copley. Strikingly informal, it depicts Revere in his shirt sleeves and without a wig, a pictorial decision that indicates his middle-class artisan stature. Engraving tools are spread out across the table, and Revere holds his head in one hand while the other grasps a double-bellied teapot. This is a crucial moment of creation, and Copley reveals the connection between mind and matter. Yet the pristine surface of a mahogany table and a waistcoat trimmed with expensive gold buttons do not accurately reflect the attire or environment of a working artisan. This suggests that Copley idealized his image of the early American artisan. Unadorned in its depiction, Revere's teapot nevertheless represented the highest testament to his craft and is a telling political symbol. As a response to British taxation on imported goods, colonists boycotted tea, which prompted a decline in Revere's teapot production. Of the mere 9 teapots Revere made between 1762 and 1773, only one is dated to 1768. Since Copley tended to avoid political controversy in his portraits, the inclusion of the teapot is therefore a provocative one. While today we tend to revel in this painting's informality, Revere's descendants did not care for Copley's depiction of their famous ancestor. The painting remained in the family's attic for many years until Longfellow's poem brought renewed attention to the Boston silversmith. Revere inherited his father's silversmith shop in 1754 at the age of 19. Through his workshop, he met prominent political leaders, and in 1765, he joined the Sons of Liberty, a secret organization that protested British taxation. His anti-English sentiment soon circulated as printed propaganda, like his most iconic political engraving, The Bloody Massacre, depicting the disastrous events of March 5th, 1770, when British troops fired on American colonists. Created a mere 3 weeks after the event, Revere's print sought to incite the colonists' fervor against British occupation. With stark visual economy and strong composition, the print shows Revere at his most effective albeit not his most original. A few days following the massacre, artist Henry Pelham showed Revere an unpublished version of the print. Aware of the image's power, Revere quickly distributed his own version of the massacre before Pelham was able to sell copies of his own print. Revere's version of the massacre scene was widely disseminated and copied without permission as well, by a watchmaker in Newburyport, a publisher in London, and a Canadian powder-horn carver living in New Hampshire. A master craftsman specializing in metalwork, Revere learned from his failures, adapted to the latest styles, and continually experimented with new techniques. That flexibility propelled him to the top of his trade. For decades, he created fashionable and functional objects from silver, gold, bronze, iron, and copper. Revere also expanded his shop beyond the traditional apprenticeship system, hiring workers and installing mechanical technology to produce goods on an industrial scale. A vital figure in the country's transition from small-scale artisan production to industrial manufacturing, Revere straddled both realms, freely combining old and new techniques in the face of rapid change. We see Revere's ingenuity in 1792 with the opening of his foundry in Boston's North End. There he made his first bell, and the first ever to be cast in Boston. Between the years 1792 and 1828, the foundry cast a total of 398 bells that varied from 500 to 2,500 pounds. This courthouse bell, smaller than most church bells, was made for the Norfolk County Courthouse in Dedham, Massachusetts, and was used to announce the opening and closing of court sessions. During Revere's time in the bell casting trade, most bells consisted of copper alloys. The metal in this alloy, however, varied depending on each bell maker's closely guarded formula. Revere seems to have subscribed to the superstition that by adding a small amount of silver would produce a sweeter sounding bell. Drawing on his knowledge of silver rolling and copper forging, as well as his metallurgical instincts, in January of 1801, Revere, at the age of 65, succeeded in becoming the first American to roll copper into malleable sheets. Like many patriots, Revere sought to end America's reliance on England for the importation of copper sheets. Copper sheathing was used for roofing and was crucial for protecting the hulls of wooden ships. After securing a loan from the Department of the Navy, Revere purchased property outside of Boston, which gave him access to water power for driving his copper rollers. The uses for rolled copper went beyond the naval yard, and Revere was able to sell sheets to craftspeople like William Honeyman. Copper, an excellent heat conductor, resistant to rust and corrosion, was an ideal metal for hot water kettles. No longer reliant on imported copper, Honeyman was able to have a thriving business specializing in copper and brass household goods. As a silversmith, Revere got to know people of all different backgrounds and classes, but he never forgot about his own economic position in the mechanics class, a social class considered to be below that of merchants, lawyers, and clergymen. But what he lacked in social status, Revere made up for by cultivating influential connections through his silversmith shop, and thereby raising his position through savvy networking. Membership in the Sons of Liberty helped Revere win commissions from fellow patriots, yet he welcomed loyalist clients, able to set aside politics for profit. As a Freemason, Revere belonged to a lodge filled with prominent citizens and potential customers. He sought government work, designing currency for the state of Massachusetts, and, after the American Revolution, doggedly pursuing contracts from the new federal government to supply copper for the nation's first naval fleet. In 1773, Dr. William Payne of Worcester commissioned Paul Revere to create a silver service for his bride, Lois Orne. Representative of the ornate surfaces and serpentine lines of the American Rococo style, this service is one of the highest achievements in design and craftsmanship credited to any 18th century New England silversmith. The 45 pieces of flat and hollow ware of the original Payne service represent the largest single order recorded in Revere's ledgers. Never partisan when it came to profit, Revere completed the set for the Loyalist Payne just 2 months before the Boston Tea Party, the destructive protest against British taxation that Revere, as one of the Sons of Liberty, helped plan and execute. A Worcester Art Museum treasure, Revere's Payne service contains the sole documented American tea set from the Rococo period. The service contains such elements of the American Rococo style as vigorous sea scrolls and acanthus leaves, reeded banding, pineapple finials, and an asymmetrical engraved cartouche representing the coat of arms and crest of the Orne family. Revere was a versatile artisan, producing more than 90 different forms in silver over the course of his 40-year career. He was able to modify his styles and designs to meet the taste of his patrons. While the Payne service demonstrates his technical ability as a master of the florid Rococo style, it was identified with the European aristocracy. Following the American Revolution, customers preferred this simplified neoclassical style associated with ancient Greco-Roman ideals. Revere also made work for members of his own social class, the mechanics. Inscribed as a gift of thanks for Samuel Gilbert, this unembellished picture is the lightest dated piece of Revere's silver known today, 1808. Revere found its source material in the simple bellied shape of ceramic British Liverpool jugs. The picture recognizes Gilbert for his service as Secretary of the Massachusetts Charitable Mechanic Association, a support organization for mechanics and their families founded by Paul Revere in 1795. When Henry Wadsworth Longfellow selected Revere's Midnight Ride as his poetic subject in 1860, the country was on the verge of civil war once again. Hoping to inspire revolutionary fervor and patriotism, the poet mythologized the historical event to transform Revere from a relatively unknown silversmith into an enduring icon. I hope you've enjoyed this virtual highlights tour of the Worcester Art Museum's iteration of Beyond Midnight Paul Revere, and have a newfound appreciation of Revere's long and prolific life.